Well then, anyway, I thought I would do this video about some of the advantages and disadvantages about electric vehicles. I don't know what all the hoo-ha is all about, because when I grew up, you just had petrol cars, and then diesel came along, and there's a big hoo-ha about that at the time, and then I thought, oh, that's quite good. The diesel was cheaper to buy in the garage, and the vehicles apparently did more miles per gallon. So there you are. So it's and then that's all settled down and it's gone away. But I quite like diesel because you do get quite a lot of economy. The diesel's now dearer than petrol, weirdly. But I quite like the clattery nature of a diesel because it reminds me of a narrowboat. And I've been in quite a few narrowboats and I quite like it. And so there you are. So that's why. But no, that's the devil's breath now, diesel. Anyway, so I looked at some of the early electric cars and why they came and went, and some of the earliest ones were from 1820. And the first car that was built, the early one, didn't have a rechargeable battery, so it couldn't go very far. But the 1864, I think it is, was it 1893? Anyway, electric cars really took off. That was the first kind of motor vehicle, in any practicality. Very, very, very massively expensive, of course. And they had reasonable ranges. I think it's 60 miles. And if you look up, I've put a link in it. Jay Leno's got a Baker electric car from, I think his one's 1911, and they were marketed actually towards women because it was much cleaner at the time, much cleaner and efficient, and but obviously you've got the range thing. But the reason they died out, or electric died out, is because they invented the electric starter motor. So previously, starting a petrol car was quite difficult with a crank handle and so on, and people got killed. And the guy that invented the electric starter, he had a friend who was killed, and so he thought, this has got to stop. We'll find a way out of this. And so 1912, they invented the electric starter motor. So the Model T Ford came out in 1908. And when they invented the electric starter, it made petrol vehicles much better, easier to run around. And of course the big disadvantage with battery electric vehicles is the charging up. The range that you get is not the same as it could be with a petrol, and also to refill a petrol tank takes minutes, as opposed to hours to charge up a battery. So they all died out. There was steam, actually. Jay Leno's, I'll put a link to that. He's got a steam car on superheated steam. So that's absolutely brilliant. Obviously that took about 20 minutes to start up, but it looks really, really interesting. And there was a hybrid. He's also got a hybrid vehicle from 1916. So all these things, I thought all these were quite modern. They're not at all. They're all going back to these days, and it's all come about now. But there's definitely advantages to battery electric vehicles, but there's also disadvantages. And I get a bit fed up with there's some propaganda. There's a particular channel that the guy does it. It just there's just all positives and no negatives, and you've got to be realistic that there are advantages to electric vehicles, but there are also disadvantages. And I think I'm looking at buying one, but I'm definitely not going to buy one just yet. Just a quick note to say, please like and subscribe and put a comment as to what you think, if I've got this right or wrong. Anyway, it does help to push the video out somewhat, and if you like cars, that was an electric one going through Fords. I've got other videos on that. So anyway, thank you for your time. Right, now one of the big advantages of a battery electric vehicle is that there are no emissions, which is very good. However, that must be countered with that the emissions are in a different place. So the manufacturer of the battery will produce much more emissions than producing a petrol or diesel engine. There's no doubt about that. To manufacture the car body, obviously it's exactly the same with the car body. And the thing is, if the battery is made in China, and to an extent in America, China has got 1,600 coal-fired power stations, which kind of seems to be forgotten about. So that goes for basically all Chinese goods, are usually very, very reasonably priced and whatever. And in fact, a lot of the things, because I did used to import from China, and a lot of the things that they say are from Germany and Italy, they're all from China. they're just purported. They may be assembled. If you put two things together, then you can say it's been manufactured. But the reality is the actual proper manufacturing from raw materials has happened in China, and then it's maybe assembled in the UK or Italy or Germany or whatever it is, and that's the fact. So the batteries are made with coal-fired power stations, and so the emissions, all right, zero out the tailpipe, but there's emissions somewhere else. So it's just moving the emissions to another country, which is, I don't know, it's all right. It's just what it is. But I think that's often forgotten about. Two, the performance of electric vehicles, it definitely, in most cases, if it's all set up right, is way better than a petrol or diesel car. You know, obviously you get Porsches and all this nonsense, but you could buy any electric car. The acceleration, it's obviously the way that the motors and everything work. The acceleration is absolutely brilliant. And I've driven a couple myself before. You say, oh, do you own one and all this? I did own one years ago, but anyway, I don't at the moment. I've got a petrol and a diesel car, and so the acceleration and torque and everything is very good. The cost to charge at home is also to do whatever mileage. It's if you can charge at home, and that is the thing, is if you can charge at home, it's definitely, get on the right tariff, it's definitely going to cost you less. I don't like to use the word cheaper because that reminds me of a plastic, buying plastic buckets at a seaside emporium. But anyway, if you can charge at home, it's definitely cheaper. If you can't charge at home, which a lot of households, and certainly around London, it's just not the ability to charge at home, then it is not going to cost less. And the outside charging network, I'll come to that in the disadvantages and all that. I'm just talking about the good bits at the moment. If you've got a company car, there's no doubt about it. Benefit in kind and all the rest of it is miles less for an electric car. And if you can do salary sacrifice, that can make sense if you want to be bothered about driving a new car and all that kind of thing, then it definitely makes sense. But it's kind of effectively, the government is effectively bribing you by doing that. If it was actually put on a level par with petrol and diesel cars, then if you had the choice, would you actually choose an electric car? Possibly not, but at the moment it's definitely an advantage if you have to have a company car to having one. Let's have a look. Next, bragging rights. It's always lovely to boast to your friends how you've got an electric car and you're the exclusive club of everyone. And if that's your thing, so that's an advantage if you like that sort of thing. Of course, electric vehicles are very good, or battery electric vehicles very good for a diet of cold runs and short starts, which a lot of cars do that. We've got two, one that just does kind of longer journeys and one that does do cold runs and short starts, and so that's the one that I will be looking to replace. And the battery, there's no doubt about it, a battery car, it'd be excellent for that, because doing cold runs and short starts in that, it's not going to affect it at all. Whereas cold runs and short starts in a petrol, or worse, if you did that in a diesel, the DPF will get clogged up. And there's loads of cases of that happening, and it's not brilliant in a petrol. It's never been brilliant in a petrol car either. They do need to be taken on a run every so often. The next advantage is some of the Chinese electric vehicles coming across are absolutely excellent, and specification and price absolutely really does blow other things completely out of the water. Even I read something the other day that the head of Porsche, now Porsche and all the pieces, VW, all these people sold all their petrol and diesel cars in China, and that's all just absolutely kind of crashing down. And they're all, the Chinese market, they are buying their own Chinese vehicles. The head of Porsche said that despite them being a premium manufacturer, that some of the Chinese vehicles are so good, or as good as the Porsches, that he said we haven't got a leg to stand on really, and he can understand why people are buying them. Well, if that's the head of Porsche saying that, goodness me, that's quite an interesting thing to actually admit to. and that just shows you how good they are. Now, a lot of people are loyal to different brands, and well, if you are, you'll stick with the brand. But I think it'll be like the Japanese, when Japanese cars came over in the 70s and 80s. Again, they loaded their cars up, and there was a lot of people poo-pooed it and said, "I just I'll be sticking with British Leyland or something like this." But of course, nobody had ever heard of. I think it was Datsun at the time. Nobody had ever heard of these people, but people bought them, and it's absolutely excellent because they're all fully loaded with all the kit at the time, and they were reliable. They're actually really good cars, and they took off. It's hardly surprising. Toyota and that sort of thing. They're absolutely excellent vehicles. So but anyway, the Chinese vehicles, that's what's happening. I can see that happening now. Some of them absolutely really are excellent. No doubt about it. And price wise, is good. Um, the other big advantage of them is that they are obviously much quieter. So if you're starting up early in the morning or something like this, or coming home late at night, and you don't want to wake up, you might diesel start it up. It's a bit noisy, but obviously, an electric car, it doesn't make any noise. You're not going to wake anybody up. Not that it wakes anybody up. In my case, we're not near anything. But if you were, it can do. If I'm staying at a hotel or something, you start it all up. It's a bit clattery, but it's just what it is. It's not for long when you drive off. But obviously the electric vehicles are obviously completely silent, and so that's definitely got to be seen as an advantage. The other advantage is you can obviously charge at home, so you don't have a petrol station at home, obviously. Well, unless you have a jerry can with some petrol in it, but you can charge at home, so that's definitely got to be seen as a convenience. And also, if you can charge at work for free, some people can. I suggest most people don't. If you can, put it in the comments. But if you work at home, then you kind of can't charge at work for free, can you? As more people do work at home now, so I don't know. That's an advantage. If you can get free charging at work, brilliant. You've got free travel, fantastic. So that's another advantage.